Finally, we've received another Counter-Strike 2 update, which once again brings some performance improvements, bug fixes, as well as some map changes. As always, of course, the timestamps are in the description down below, so without further ado now, let's dive into today's update video. Starting off with the miscellaneous changes. This time around we've received some adjustments to the spawn positions, which are no longer randomly determined when a player reconnects to a server during freeze time. The spawn point sequence is now configured at the beginning of the map and is saved or restored from round backup files. You can see this in action on screen right now. Before this update, the bot positions were randomly shuffled if you restarted the map. However, after this update this is no longer the case now and they're just staying in the same positions. Not entirely sure if this is the best way of showing this, but hopefully this kind of gets the point across. Valve further clarifies this by stating in official matchmaking servers, players who disconnect and reconnect during freeze time will respawn in the spawn point they were assigned at the beginning of the round. Valve also mentions how this works on community servers, as well as when restoring from round backup files. Anyways, moving on to the other changes. Kills you get during the warm-up of Deathmatch no longer count towards the health shot reward or the Zeus score bonus, which was previously the case. Quite an interesting bug that occurred before this update. Good to see Valve has fixed this. They also addressed the issue where players were able to jump higher than normal when toggling low frame rates. You can see how this looked before this update on screen right now. An instance of weapon switching being ignored by the server was also addressed, which is really good to hear. This was probably quite infuriating when it happened. As well as Valve addressing some issues with the smoke shadow rendering and making some improvements to the overall performance. However, I was unable to determine any significant performance improvements here, but this may as well just be due to my method of testing. They fixed the bug where the game would crash on Linux while alt-tabbing, as well as fixing some cases where a frame rate hitch would occur due to compiling shaders. This update also once again brought some various improvements to the night mode music hitbox, which you can see on screen right now, alongside with fixing some of the cases where the MVP music would not play or would play over round end music. Players who get kicked from official competitive servers for unaliving themselves too often will now be issued a competitive cooldown. Chickens no longer interact with dropped weapons, which may have led to some pretty funny scenarios. Something which wasn't mentioned in the patch notes was pointed out by Launders on Twitter. Apparently jumps are a lot more consistent now, which is really good to hear. Before we move on to the map changes, on screen right now you can see some of the other bug fixes Valve has made, alongside with some of the other changes. For the map changes, we've received some adjusted spawn location priorities for Premier and competitive game modes on certain maps. This includes Anubis, Inferno, Mirage, Nuke, Overpass and Vertigo. However, some of the more interesting changes were made to Inferno, one of the least popular maps in competitive play right now, which I assume is maybe why Valve has made these changes. Starting off with some of the gaps which have been reported by the community were fixed with this update, which is good to hear. Valve also ended up raising the plywood at the top of Banana to cover the head visibility. You can see the before and after on screen right now. They've also smoothed the ground movement in Banana and Bomb Site A, as well as raising the arch exit towards mid, which you can see on screen right now. They've also ended up removing the bench at Arch near Library, as well as removing some of the unnecessary decorations in the middle of the map, such as the construction cone alongside with its flower pots. And that's already going to conclude today's video. I hope it was informative and enjoyable to watch. Thank you so much for watching the video, and as always, of course, I will see you in the next one.